All right, everybody. Welcome back for a brand new episode of Beyond the Trail podcast, brought to you by Jester Wallis Productions. I guess I should say 50% of Jester Wallis Productions. I am Julie Gayhart, and the other 50% of Jester Wallis Productions is right here with me, Austin. How does it feel to be back on the mic?
What's up, folks? Actually, it feels pretty good. I don't know, for the listening crowd out there, you're going to miss out on this, but I was jamming to our music coming on for the countdown because I hadn't heard it in a while. So it's like, yeah, so it's good to be back. It's been a hot minute since we've been on this one. So good times.
Yeah, it feels good to see you. It may have been a hot minute since we've been on our live podcast here, but we have been working behind the scenes. And recently, in the past 10 days, we have seen each other. We have been to an event with a company called Feed the Hunger in light of everything that happened in Western North Carolina. We have been working, we have been donating, and our hearts right now my heart is still broken for everything that's happened from Hurricane Helene. And now, yesterday and today, a new hurricane in Florida and Austin. I don't know what we do with all these hurricanes. They got to go.
They do gotta go. I definitely agree. It just, it's seeing the absolute devastation in the western part of the state. And I just saw it's shared a couple of times on my feed, but Black Mountain Campground was something that showed up on my Facebook feed the other day, and I sent it to my brother because through our MST extravaganzas and adventures, that's like home base. Black Mountain Campground was home base, and just to see the devastation there, and I imagine for a lot of people around the country, and even here in Raleigh and eastern part of the state and elsewhere, it's very easy to just watch something on the news, and it doesn't really feel real. It's just a story on the box that's in my living room. But to see the places that we've been, that we've bled and sweat it's very humbling. But it also makes it like, I want to do something. I want to help. And I think there's a lot of that. We've seen that in the last few weeks where people have just literally flown helicopters or donated money or donated time or donated food to help, because there's so many people. There's millions of people across the country that have taken Western North Carolina and East Tennessee. That's their happy place. And to see it succumb to such devastation, it's clear that people love the area and want to help. So even though it's been so terrible, it's very heartwarming to see the outpouring of support that we've seen. Just feels real good.
And one of the reasons we are having our guest on this evening, she is the owner of Blue Ridge Hiking Company in the heart of Western North Carolina, in Asheville. Her name is Lindsey Barr, and I'm going to read something from their website. First of all, it says the Blue Ridge Hiking Company is Asheville's premier hiking company, so they're the first. And you can imagine what this has done to Lindsey and her employees and everything they had going on for the upcoming months. And I'm going to read, Lindsey's going to talk about this more here, but currently right now, their Asheville shop where they sell backpacks and anything you ever wanted for hiking is without electricity, water, and internet access. They also have a small hostel in the town of Hot Springs, North Carolina, and Lindsey is going to talk all about that. And Lindsey and her crew supported Austin and I through and through when it came to our film, Safe and Found. They put it out on their social media. They actually came to the town of Waynesville this past January for the premiere. And Lindsey, we cannot thank you all enough. And we're here tonight with you in heart and soul. And we're going to go ahead and bring Lindsey on. So, Lindsey, welcome to the show.
Hey y'all, thanks for having me.
So I guess the best way to get this kicked off is, I think right before the show we discussed maybe a little bit of information before. Tell us exactly what the Blue Ridge Hiking Company does for those that may not be familiar. Maybe they've been under a rock for the last 16 years. And then we will just kind of take it from there. And I mean that when we say that, and I know Austin means that as well. You all are our friends, and we want to help you as much as possible. We have other friends that work for you as well. So, Lindsey, kind of take it away.
Yeah, so Blue Ridge Hiking Company, we kind of operate three branches, I'll say. So first is our guided hikes. We do day hikes and backpacking trips throughout Western North Carolina, including places like Great Smoky Mountains National Park, Pisgah National Forest, along the Blue Ridge Parkway, 170 something miles of the AT, which is, kind of our roots. We have the shop that Julie mentioned in downtown Asheville that specializes in lightweight and ultralight backpacking gear from cottage industry brands. So these are brands like ULA, Gossamer Gear, Lightheart Gear, things that you can't find at your local REI or your local independent outdoor store most of the time. And we have a bunkhouse up in Hot Springs that serves as a base camp for a lot of our AT trips. But we also do shuttles, gear rentals, etc. from Hot Springs.
So, as you talk us through, now that we know exactly what Blue Ridge Hiking Company, what you guys are all about, you've been in business for over 16 years, you're in the heart and soul of Asheville. Now we want to know the story. So we had this hurricane come through 9, 10 days ago now, and I know you had guides out hiking. So kind of lead us up to, maybe that Thursday before everything really started hitting. Did you guys really think this was going to affect Asheville? Kind of walk us through.
Yeah, so the story starts a little bit before Thursday. It starts on Tuesday. We were in a little bit of a lull at the end of September. The very busiest part of our season was set to start October 4th. Um, but we had a trip out on the AT and the Smokies. Um, and Tuesday night before the storm hit, looking at the forecast, we just made the decision that we weren't comfortable with the amount of rain coming and shuttling out of Fontana and looking at the potential for high winds on Thursday when the trip was supposed to end. So we decided to bring or evac that group off trail. We rerouted them to a closer trailhead that wasn't Fontana, sent someone to go pick them up out of the Smokies, and got that group back to Hot Springs. They got rained on a little bit that Wednesday, but it could have been so, so much worse. We sort of expected that we would need to cancel or postpone the trips for that weekend, but we had no idea the impact that it was going to have until we got a little bit later in the weekend. I got over 10 inches of rain at my house Wednesday night. And once we saw the amount of rain that was coming down and continuing to come down on Thursday, we were just like, this might be worse than we thought. So we had canceled all of our weekend trips in advance just in case there was a lot of flooding and people couldn't really get around. But no, we didn't anticipate even, Thursday, Friday, when we were in town, we lost cell signal and internet Friday early in the morning. And so we didn't see the worst of it until I got out of town and got back to cell signal.
Wow. So you mentioned how many trips did you have out? Or
We had
was that?
one trip actually on trail that we had to
Okay.
evac, and a second one set to start. A second backpacking trip set to start Friday that we decided to postpone.
Okay. Um, and then you mentioned you didn't have cell signal or anything like that. So how long was that dark period, I guess? Did you, I mean, could you see that this incoming rain and uh, go from there, like
Yes.
using that?
Yeah, so we kind of lost in Asheville. The worst of the rain was Wednesday and Thursday.
Mm.
And then we had a lot of wind on Friday. And cell signal started going down Friday morning. I suspect that it's from the river rising and from starting to impact cell towers. But that just logically makes sense to me. I don't really have evidence of that or whatever. Um, so, we had seen the forecast, we had seen some clearer weather coming over the weekend, and so we truly did think that we were going to have this flooding, and then it would go back down. We'd have clear weather, and things would be fine in a week or so.
Well, I think that's what we're used to in the mountains because if anybody
Yeah,
knows if anybody knows Western North Carolina, you can almost guarantee a storm anywhere between 3 and 5, and then maybe later in the
yeah.
evening, like every single day. So
Hmm.
I think I was thinking the same thought process. We were getting ready to head down to the Pinhoti Fest in Alabama, and I was like, "Oh well, it'll be over about 11:30. The sun will come out," and that's exactly what happened. And then it was like, "Whoa, what is happening? Traffic's being rerouted, and different things were happening."
Hmm.
So you said you were in West Asheville and you didn't have the flood damage, but walk us through when you started hearing or seeing what was going on in Hot Springs, what was going on in Marshall, what was going on
Yeah.
in Waynesville, because all of these surrounding small little mountain towns that we all love became severely impacted rather rapidly.
Yeah, so because of the heavy rain, I went to our shop on Thursday and grabbed like laptop, cell phone, those sorts of things so that I could work from home. I knew no one would be shopping when it was pouring down rain. And I drive across the river to get to work. And that Thursday afternoon, when I saw the river, I was like, oh, she's coming up. We were already looking at floodwaters that Thursday, when we lost cell signal, I could easily go see what floodwater was like in town. Because there's rivers and creeks all through Asheville. Um, we didn't really have an idea of the damage in Black Mountain and Marshall and Hot Springs and Swannanoa until I had like a text come through from a friend who just said like, I think this is going to be longer than we all thought. Like the damage in Madison County is really bad on Sunday after the storm. So that was the first indication I had of what was going on up there. I had been listening to the twice daily Buncombe County briefings on my weather radio, which I still have at home, an analog battery operated weather radio. And so I knew from those news briefings what was going on in Black Mountain and Swannanoa. And I knew that the interstate had closed, 40, that is. Um, but, you would get a little piece of information here or there, and you had no idea if it was true. You're getting just texts in and out, nothing, more than no phone calls, certainly, no internet access. So we didn't really know what it was like until I left town the following Tuesday.
Mm.
Um,
Wow.
I left town to come down to get internet access at my parents' house. It's where I am now, um, to try and work through some Blue Ridge Hiking Company stuff. I knew folks had been trying to get in touch with us because we had been without any kind of communications for 5 days. So left town to come down here and drove through Swannanoa and Black Mountain and Old Fort and saw the rock slide that had been on 40, and just, it was really heavy, to then like open up social media and see. what the news coverage was covering on our local news station here. It just kind of hits like a wave. So took a day to like process, right? Because it's so much loss in our area. It's such a beautiful area that won't be the same. And then got to work.
Mm.
Wow. When you say got to work, so you've just got this flood of emotions, and like you said, I think we were all in the same boat. Just like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh. But you talk about getting to work. So talk about that process. So you've had this, this dark period, and
Yeah.
now you've kind of start seeing everything. And what's your first step? I mean, for me, I wouldn't even know where to start, honestly.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. There was like, what do I do? Where do I go? But my first step was trying to get voicemail changed on our phone, an auto reply up on our email, and a banner up on our website.
Mm.
Just
Wow.
so like people knew we were still here and we just couldn't reach back out. So did those things pretty quickly once I got down here. Um, I say down here, I'm in Winston-Salem now, is why I keep saying down here because I'm down the mountain. Um, so got those things up, um, checked in with the last few of our team members that I had not heard from. Um, it was Wednesday, so a full week after the rain started before I heard from our last team member to know that everyone was safe,
Hmm.
which was a very stressful time, but everybody's good. We're all fine. Um, and then just started kind of replying to emails, being like, "Hey, sorry, it's been 5 days since you reached out. Like, this is what's going on." We, as an admin team, we have 4 or 5 members of our admin team. Hopped on the phone that Wednesday morning and said, "All right, here's how we're going to divide up work. These are the trips we're going to cancel as of now." We had one person who did have access to their work email, so some people had been reached out to, um, and just checking voicemails and text messages and social media. So divide and conquer is kind of what we did after learning that everyone was safe.
One of the
Gosh, I
coolest thing. Go ahead, Austin.
no, I was just saying, I like just the anxiety and the stress of just trying to make sure your friends are okay.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
that's
I
that's
know
that's a lot.
it can come across as a little bit of a red flag for an employer to say that they think of their team as a family, but like I really do. Like the folks that work for me are my family, and like, I'd give them the shirt off my back. So I was just so grateful to hear that they were okay.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think that's a red flag. I think that's awesome. And probably why they continue to guide with you year after year after year. And I can't imagine having to account for each and every employee.
Hmm.
And one of the things that you're doing is trying to make sure your employees are taken care of. And that's not a red
Yeah.
flag. So
Yes.
no, as a company right now, you have a GoFundMe out there.
We do.
And I think it's awesome. And that was one of the things I said to you in the email when I asked you to come on. I said, hey, listen, Austin and I want to talk to you because I think it's
Yeah.
awesome what you're trying to do for your employees. Because I know, just speaking with Heidi, a lot of those employees rely, on Blue Ridge Hiking Company full time,
Hmm.
not necessarily herself. So walk us through that process because I know in your reply you said it was not easy to ask for money and set up a GoFundMe.
Yeah.
So walk us through that.
Yeah, I mean, I am like an Appalachian person. Like I'm from here. I grew up in these hills where I am now, and I grew up in the mountains, playing up there. So there's a lot of like resilience and self-dependency, and like, we help other people, right? I mean, that's the Appalachian way. So having to ask for help for our team took, it was very humbling for me because I want to provide for them, right? But we did. We set up a GoFundMe that would cover our team's full pay for all of our canceled October trips. So I'm really hoping we can make that happen because without work, our guides don't get paid. And so being able to support them in that way, I think is a really great thing that we can do for them.
I think
And
that's the quintessential positive working environment, Lindsay. I think that it's no red flags there.
and I think I just want to throw this in here too. October is your busiest month. So for those
It is.
employees, probably now, if it was me, I would have budgeted out. Yeah, I'm going to buy this in October. I'm going to buy that in
Yeah.
October because that's my busiest month. I'm going to get tips. I'm going to
Mhm.
get paid. So walk us through that as well.
Yeah, so October trips account for about 20 to 25% of our annual revenue. It's a huge portion of the trips that we offer throughout the year. So we guide pretty much like March through October. We will guide in the winter, like, hey, if someone wants to come backpacking in December or January, come on out. We'll do it. This year we actually had a January 1st through 3rd backpacking trip booked, which was a fun way to kick off the new year. But yeah, October is a quarter almost of our annual revenue. So for our guides that do work full time, I mean, that's really a more than full time employment for them for this month. Um, yeah, so just trying to show up for them.
Mm.
That's awesome. And in true fashion, we talked for a few minutes before we went live. And so one of the things you mentioned that honestly had never occurred to me, but you mentioned some of the kind of alternate ideas you have besides guiding to try to start filling in those gaps. Can you talk a little more about
Yes.
that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we operate an online shop. So if anyone wants to buy a new backpack or art from Heidi that you mentioned, we have all that stuff up on our website. We are currently packing and shipping orders once a week because, as Julie mentioned, we still don't have power at our downtown Asheville location. Um, so that's a great way to, support us. You can go ahead and do your Christmas shopping early if you want. Um, we also are working on getting some more virtual workshops available for folks. So we've historically done in-person workshops through the winter where you can come and learn map and compass skills or how to plan for an AT through hike or an MST through hike, my personal favorite trail. So those kinds of things, we're trying to move some of that online. We're working on. It's not up yet, but if you keep an eye on our website, it will be. And we offer online coaching, so you can connect with one of our guides one on one and learn from them. Again, whatever you want to talk about. So I'm actually doing an MST coaching session on Monday with someone to talk about like how to plan the logistics of the MST because it's kind of a weird thing. Um, yeah, so doing that kind of online coaching. So all kinds of stuff available. And you can always buy a gift card for your trip next year.
I
There
love
you
it.
go, people. You know what to get for Christmas. So I want to talk about um, going back to that dark period. So you've told us kind of
Yeah.
what happened, where Blue Ridge Hiking Company starts now. For those of us on this side, Austin, I was even thinking like we had already gone and done another live of how we were going to start giving back
Hmm.
before you even knew what was going on. So, yeah, we need to let that resonate for people. So, Austin and I were on with a really good friend of Austin's named Pete Beck, and we were talking about an organization where those of us that were told to stay out of Western North Carolina, we could go immediately and give back. And we did that. And that seems so odd to me now. Not that we did that, but we were planning that. And people in Western North Carolina didn't even know the extent of what was happening. So, talk about what it was like not knowing, or did you not know that you didn't know, if that makes sense? It's
Yeah, so that's a great question. We were, at our home, we were kind of in survival mode. So our basement is prone to flooding. So Friday, I basically spent like literally, we lost power and I was like scooping. buckets of water out of our sump pump well to like dump in the toilet
Mm.
to try and keep our basement from flooding. So once that like very initial like, all right, gotta keep the basement from flooding, gotta figure out what do we do next. Once that passed, we and the weather kind of calmed down a little bit. We drove into town to see if we could find cell signal, hoping that like somewhere closer to downtown might still have signal. Got in touch with, just got a quick text out to my family, my partner's family, to say like, hey, we're safe. Like if you hear anything, let us know what you hear. Like send us a text. You're not going to be able to call us. And just started listening to the Buncombe County um, news briefings that they were doing every day. You know, we knew from one of those briefings that we had a boil water advisory while we still had a little bit of running water. So we were grateful for that because we knew not to drink it. I also knew I had neighbors that didn't have water. So I was like, all right, it's bad enough we've lost water in places. We know we've lost power in cell, so I know that has to be pretty bad, right? Um, and as we kind of went through the next couple days, we were like, all right, this is what's going on. It's got to be pretty bad. And so we did know. We knew that we didn't know, if that makes sense. Like we knew that it was worse than what we were seeing in our like very local community. But those first few days were really truly survival mode within communities. They were like, how can we help our neighbors? You know, how can we clean up debris? How can we, you know, make sure I have an elderly neighbor that doesn't drive? Like, how can I make sure she has food and water? And it was really honestly beautiful to see our neighborhoods and communities come together because, you know, kind of the nice thing about this versus going through COVID is that we could talk to each other, right? During COVID, you didn't want to get close to your neighbor because you don't know who's sick and you don't know how people are going to get sick, but we're all in the same situation now and you're just checking in on each other. And I've met honestly more of my neighbors in the 5 days after the storm than I have in the 5 years I've lived on that street.
Love that.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, that part of it was great. It was not a great situation,
No.
right?
Well, well, that was what I was alluding to, like at the very beginning of the podcast. It was just this, everyone is just surrounded by this devastation, but
Mhm.
the phoenix from the ashes is just this fellowship that
Yeah,
complete strangers have developed. Um, and it happens in so many small ways all over the place. And that was what I got out of it, was just this,
yeah.
like, okay, humanity is not doomed. We're gonna be fine.
It's gonna be okay.
Because because there's so many good people out there that want to help each other.
Yeah,
And so
and
I agree.
something that like I see, you know, I'm sure it's like this in a lot of places, but what I'm most familiar with is rural Southern communities, right? Is that if I have extra of something, I have a neighbor that needs it. And if I have not enough of something, I might have a neighbor that has it. So finding ways to kind of like build those connections and support each other, you know, with power not being on, grocery stores weren't open, gas stations weren't open. So it was really, it was definitely like a, what do you have on hand and how can you use that to help the people around you? Whether that was, you know, manpower or someone a few streets over had a Starlink internet that a few days into the storm, they like just put up the password on their front door so that people
Awesome.
could get communication with the outside world. And a lot of the local restaurants were cooking up, you know, whatever food they had in their freezer that was defrosting because we had no power. And so it was really beautiful and
Lindsay,
continues to be.
we do have a question from the chat.
Okay.
So uh, they want to know, how's your house, the shop, and the hot springs trailer currently?
Yeah, so we all around have been really fortunate. So we had a few of our team members that did have some damage to their homes. That was one of the catalysts for me starting that GoFundMe, because when you've got a tree on your roof, it's not the time to be out income. Um, but my personal home was fine. You know, I had like some branches down in my backyard. That's not a big deal. Um, We did save the basement from flooding, so I'll take that as a victory. Our shop was also undamaged, and same with the trailer. We're great, no damage.
And maybe we should preface the trailer is in Hot
Oh yeah,
Springs, but it's on the outskirt of town, like maybe what, a half
yes,
a mile?
less than that. So we are maybe a quarter mile from like Hot Springs proper. Um, and Hot Springs, I mean, our heart is broken for that community. They
Mm.
have the main stretch of town is bordered on one side by the French Broad River and on the other side by Spring Creek. And both of those waterways hit historic highs and kind of like merged in town. So all of those businesses in town between those two waterways have, been damaged. Some of them destroyed. I'm sure that the folks will build back because that's what we do in the South, right? Um, but yeah, I mean, it's just heartbreaking to see that, and a stroke of luck for us that we're on the outskirts of town.
Mm. Yeah, I remember Heidi was telling her story. They were actually a guide of yours was actually in the trailer with the person that actually the caretaker of the trailer, and they were more afraid of a tree. They weren't
Hmm.
really concerned about the water. It was more of
Yeah,
the trees falling.
yep.
So yeah, it's interesting to hear stories as things have been coming, to the surface from people that were actually, I guess, as you want to say, in town when these things were
Hmm.
happening. So, as we move on to maybe kind of like current times, or I know you have to work with the Forest Service, the Pisgah National Forest, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Where are you guys at in communications with what's happening? I guess the State of the Union for our national
For
forest
trails.
in Western North
Yeah.
Carolina. Yeah.
Well, we have been following their lead as they're reopening stuff and as they have time to assess damage and communicate those things with us. So Great Smoky Mountains National Park reopened most of the park earlier this week. They had, well, I say reopened. They had originally been discouraging backpacking because of limitations on resources and not having been able to check trails, but they've kind of lifted that. So Big Creek, where the Pigeon River is at that entrance, I'm sure y'all have seen the damage from the Pigeon River on I-40. So that part of the national park is still closed, and Cataloochee Valley is still closed. But the rest of the national park is open. Tennessee, well, I don't want to say Tennessee as a whole. The Gatlinburg area had much less damage than we did in Asheville. So they are encouraging visitors, as well as the very western parts of Western North Carolina, like Swain County, Cherokee, the Koala boundary, Jackson County. So those areas are accepting visitors and are encouraging folks to maybe pivot their vacation from Asheville down to Cherokee. Um, and then the Blue Ridge Parkway, Pisgah National Forest, and DuPont State Forest all remain closed in our area. So that's the vast majority of where we guide that is still closed. And we heard from Pisgah National Forest earlier this week that trying to get road access to the trailhead, they were stopping to cut down trees every like quarter mile out of the
Mm.
road. There's just in massive numbers of trees down. So as they get trail crews in to assess damage, I'm sure we'll hear more about reopening timelines and trail work needs. And so we encourage if folks want to help the land and help the forest recover to support some of the trail maintenance organizations. So that might be Carolina Mountain Club, Friends of the Mountains to Sea Trail, Blue Ridge Parkway Association, Friends of the Smokies, Friends of DuPont, like all of those friends organizations that, will help get back in there and do the work to clean up the trails once they've been assessed.
Mm.
I'm sure a time will come for boots on the ground help too, but it's not yet.
Yeah, that's something that it's that's uh, I see is like the where we all want to get to, right? We all want to get back on trail, because
Hmm.
that's what made us fall in love with that whole area in the first place.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, very important to not go where we're not. where they're not ready for us yet.
Yeah.
But it's heartening, and it's just great to hear that places like the Smokies are opening up, and there are places to go, and
Yeah.
people can support the local economies and that kind of thing, because that's what's going to keep everything alive.
Oh yeah. And I mean, personally, like I'm a paddler and a cyclist and a hiker, like I do it all. And so not having access to any of it has been tough for the last couple weeks.
Yeah,
But, I'm gonna wait until the forest is ready.
it's always going to be there.
Yeah.
It may look a little different, but it is always going to be there.
Yeah.
So, as we wrap up, and you just rattled off some amazing organizations. And when I go back and listen to this, I will definitely make sure those organizations are in the description of this YouTube video and on our audio podcast, because I don't want people to miss out on those organizations. Because there will come a time where, like you said, the Carolina Mountain Club, they've put a halt on things for now, but there will come a time when they say, we need you, and it's time to volunteer, put boots back on the ground, all that wonderful stuff. So, Lindsey, as we round out here, first of all, I cannot thank you enough for your support that you've shown us here at Jester Wallis Productions, and we want to support you as well. So, can people just go to your website and get the GoFundMe? We've got it here in the description below. We've got it in the chat. What's the best way? What are the ways people can, besides the GoFundMe, give?
Yeah, so if you want to give to Blue Ridge Hiking Company directly, we have the GoFundMe set up. You can also shop on our website. Our website, we have a whole or on our web store, we have a section for Helene recovery. So this includes donating to our staff, but also purchasing backpacking food, backpacking fuel, and water filters for us to donate to the community. Um, you can book a trip, coaching session, kind of any of the above. If folks are looking to provide aid to Western North Carolina, there's some really wonderful mutual aid organizations operating in Asheville and the surrounding areas that are like literally hiking supplies into people that can't get out. So those are organizations like Beloved Asheville, Roar in Madison County, and Rise Irwin up in Irwin, Tennessee. And I'm sure there's more than that, right? Those are just the ones that I know of off the top of my head. So those are great ways to support the community as a whole, or supporting one of those land organizations like Carolina Mountain Club, so that when it's time to do the trail work, that we can.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh, you can also follow us on social media. I should have said that.
Yeah, we'll make sure that's in there
sleep.
as well. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's probably everything at Blue Ridge Hiking Co. or Company.
Mhm. Yep, Blue Ridge Hiking Co. on Instagram and Facebook. I think we have a Twitter or an X or whatever, but I don't update it.
I don't know if anybody does. I guess I shouldn't say this, but
Uh,
the Twitter X has turned into a whole other thing, and I'm glad we could
Yeah.
laugh. So it's good to
Yeah.
laugh with you, Lindsey. Before we head out here, Austin, any parting thoughts before we let Lindsey go here?
just that I just want to give a huge shout out to you, Lindsey, but to Blue Ridge Hiking Company, because even before the storm, y'all do such great work. You make the outdoors, and you make the wilderness accessible for people, and you make it, if somebody wants to go out for a 3-day backpacking trip or anything like, even longer, you make that a possibility for a lot of people that might not do it otherwise. So I just want to say thank you for doing that and showing the outdoors to a lot of folks. But then something that also just struck me as you were talking about your website, the things that you're doing for the community. If I want to donate to make sure that there's food for people or fuel or anything like that, you continue to give back, even when you have to, go somewhere else to get internet to come talk to some silly podcasters. You're still thinking of others. And I think that speaks very highly of your whole company. So thank you for talking to us tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, y'all.
Yeah, Lindsey, thank you very much. And like I said, we will get all the donation links, all the organizations that you talked about. Once I re-listen to this again, we'll get it in all the notes and all the things and your socials. Lindsey, don't go anywhere as Austin and I close out this episode. Hang on just a second. Austin, wow.
It's, as Lindsey was talking about, sometimes it just takes a long time to just process everything that's happening. And, one of the things that hit me tonight was that you and I have had a lot more time to process than a lot of these folks that are still out there. And there's still people without internet that, just get bits and pieces of information. So that was what has really kind of resonated with me, is that this is still going on right now. And we can't let this, just fade away, so that the next story can come up. Like this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so we just need to continue to support our neighbors in the mountains and help them so that we can all enjoy that area again.
Yeah. I could not agree more. And I cannot say it better. So I know, shocking. So with that, and one of the things that I really love being on here with you, Austin, is because we can always laugh, despite things going on. And I appreciate you making me laugh. So on that note, everybody, please do what you can. Again, as Austin said, and as Lindsey said, this is ongoing. This is months and months and months. And if we're going to get back to those beloved areas that we love so much, we are all going to have to give in some kind of way. So until the next episode, everybody, all I can say is be safe out there, donate where you feel comfortable, give your hard labor whenever it comes up. And Austin?
Good times.